Welcome at the Zuid-Afrikahuis. Welcome for our dear digital audience. Welcome on our YouTube page. Today we have an interview with Vilda Aesop, and this is part of our once in 2 months interview, which we host with our journalists in residence. Every 2 months, the Zuid-Afrikahuis invites a journalist from South Africa to work for 2 months in Holland and I don't know, work on their personal projects and also share some information about South Africa with us. Um, Today, our conversation will be in English. Sometimes we have Afrikaans versus Dutch interview. Today, it will be English. And we kindly ask you guys to join in to the conversation. Please feel free to ask questions after Vilda has her introduction to the subject of today, 30 years of democracy in South Africa. For our digital audience, you can join in and ask your questions in our chat. I'll read the chat and I'll find a moment to ask your question. And yeah, without I'll forward your question to Vilda. Today, it's a pleasure to host Vilda Aesop. Vilda is a journalist for Netwerk 24 for almost 20 years already. Her expertise spans general news, court news, but also parliamentarian news and political news. The last 2.5 years, she has been working on the homepage of Netwerk 24 and does the digital part of the journalism. Without further ado, may I invite you here, Vilda? And can I get a loud applause?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here and for listening to my presentation. Like Simon said, I haven't been doing much journalism for the past 2 years. I've been in the background doing some digital journalism as a homepage editor at the moment. But today we're talking about 30 years of democracy. It's 30 years, sorry, of democracy. It's not, someone would say it's not 30 years yet, but we're well on our way. It's 6 months to go. Um, um, we're preparing for the elections in 2024. We don't have a date yet, but it's definitely happening. Okay, so in 1994, as everybody knows, yes, a new South Africa was born. The first democratic elections were held on the 27th of April. Um, and it ushered in a new era in South Africa. For the first time in the history of a country, all of us, despite our skin color, we could vote. We could put our cross on the ballot paper and elect a government. Black, white, colored, Indian. We were all allowed to vote. This is obviously, needless to say, a very extremely exciting time for those of you who were there. You would know how exciting that was, and also a very emotional moment for people to be able to cast their votes. So the elections was a culmination of 4 years of multi-party negotiations because obviously Nelson Mandela was released in 1990 and we only voted in 1994 because all the processes had to take place for us to get to that point where we could have an election. So it started shortly after the release of former President Nelson Mandela. They spent 27 years in prison. There we have just a picture of the technology is disappointing us at the moment. Okay, so it's just a picture of Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela walking out of prison, Witwatersrand prison at the time in Paarl. Okay, so the new order. So the ANC won the elections by 62% of the votes. More than 12 million people cast their votes. Out of 12 million out of 19.3 million voted in favor of the ANC. And a government of national unity was formed with, obviously, with Mandela as the president and F.W. de Klerk as his deputy at the time. And it was a new country. It was the Rainbow Nation, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu called it. We had 11 new languages, official languages, a new flag, and euphoric optimism for the future. And then Mandela obviously only served for one term, and then he was followed up by Thabo Mbeki for for 2 terms. Unfortunately, we can't see the election results, but I'll just read to you. The ANC got 62.6% of the vote. The National Party 20%, and the IFP 10, and the smaller parties got obviously less. But because we have a proportional system. Right. Oh. Okay, so in 1994, when New South Africa was born, the first we had our first democratic elections on the 27th of April, and which ushered in a brand new South Africa to end apartheid. For the first time in our history, everybody could vote, all races, black, coloreds, Indians, and it was an extremely exciting and emotional moment for us, as you can imagine. We haven't had an opportunity to ever vote before, and we could do that, elect a government that we wanted. So the election was a combination of 4 years of multi-party negotiations, which started with after the release of former President Nelson Mandela in February 1990, after 27 years in prison. Next one. Yeah, next one. So, next one. Okay, so there's his release. Nelson Mandela was released, and with his wife, his then wife, Winnie Mandela, walking out of the prison, Victor Verster prison to call. Okay, next slide. So, obviously, this was a new order. The ANC won the elections with 62%, 0.6% of the vote, more than 12 million of the votes of the 19.3 billion votes that were cast were in favor of the ANC. And the government of national unity was formed with Mandela as the president and F.W. de Klerk as his deputy. New country was born. It was exciting with the Rainbow Nation, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu called us at the time, 11 official languages, new flag, and euphoric optimism for the future. And Mandela at the time, he was quite old already, and he only served for 1 term, and he was succeeded by a Thabo Mbeki, served for 2 terms. Next slide. There we have a breakdown of the election results. You see the ANC got 62, followed by the National Party and the IFP and Freedom Front. At the time, it was still the Democratic Party. They obviously changed their name now. The Democratic Alliance, the PAC, and the ACP. This is more of the ANC. Sorry, excuse me. There we have Nelson Mandela casting his vote, and the ANC, an ANC rally at the stadium. Next slide. It was on the 10th of May after the elections, and Nelson Mandela was the first democratic president of South Africa. Next slide. So here we have Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk. They obviously went on later on to win the Nobel Peace Prize at the time. Yeah. Okay, so next slide. So we have a new era that was ushered in, like I said, Nelson Mandela was a president from 1994 to 1999. He was followed by Thabo Mbeki, then Kgalema Motlanthe was a caretaker at the time. And then we had Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa. Right. Next slide. So support for the ANC have gradually reduced since 1994. Then we can see 94, 62. 1990 went up, and in 2004, incidentally, was the highest that they received, and in 2009, gradually came down. 2019, for the first time, we see that the ANC fell into the 50s zone. And then in 2021, danger zone, because for the first time ever, the ANC, that although this is the local government, the municipal elections, there are three tiers of government: national, provincial, and municipal. So the municipal elections, you see the ANC dropping to 47.51%. Okay, next slide. So obviously, we're just going back a bit, just to explain the ANC government. So Nelson Mandela promised a better life for all, free basic services for the poor, to tackle poverty and create jobs and freedom, prosperity for all. We had a program called the RDP, the reconstruction and development program. As part of that program, lots of houses were built, and there were a sense of optimism in the air for this program, new South Africa, things were going to change. And the new government, obviously, has seen massive problems that we had of unemployment, lots of people unemployed, people are poor, and there's lots of inequality, and housing was an issue. Lots of people lived in shacks, and corruption was an issue, and we had a poor public schooling system and crime, obviously. So all these issues still impacts the country today in 2023.
Corruption issue in 1994. Excuse me.
Well, it
Questions maybe after the introduction. Yeah, yeah. We'll keep it in mind.
wasn't. I'll come back to that one though, but that aspect, that one should come out because it happened later on. Okay, so obviously it's just the next slide. So today there's no trace of that initial euphoria that we had, the promise of a new country, a new way of living, has vanished and has been replaced with monumental disappointment actually. So there are serious failures, a severe lack of service delivery. In some cases, areas are without electricity and water for days on end. And I won't- I don't want to say things are falling apart because not everything is falling apart, but people are disappointed. And there's widespread criticism that the ANC had failed the people. And people are genuinely fed up at this point. Okay, so next. Yeah, yeah. So it's important to know that this is not a scientific assessment. It's my own uh, viewpoint. But no matter what your political background or how you feel today, there's no denying that South Africa is better and upper because we have our rights. We are free. We can vote. We have universal suffrage. All theoretically have access to basic water and electricity and to houses that some people never had before. Um, Houses for built for all, yes, but not for all. We have a no fee paying schools. People can go to school for free, and the poor receives equal social grants. I must just say there why qualify that and say that in the past not everybody received the same amount of grants of pensions. So the poor, the black people received no, they didn't receive the same as white people or colored people. I'm classified as colored people, so a person, so I'm in the middle. So whites got the most, blacks got the least, coloreds in the middle. Okay, next slide. So today, South Africa still has massive social economic challenges. So more than grants I refer to, more than 18 million South Africans receive social welfare grants on a monthly basis, old age, child support, disability grants. And this is largely due to poverty and unemployment. And South Africa has a huge unemployment rate. For the first quarter of 2023, it stood at a whopping 32.9%. And according to Stats SA, that's Statistics South Africa, our official statistics organization, um, this figure rates amongst the highest in the world, unemployment rate. And according to the quarterly labor force survey, um, this was 0.2% increase compared to the fourth quarter of last year. So it's actually declining. And next slide. So we have huge governance issues. We have weak governance at local government level, and this results in poor service delivery. Figures of the AG, the Auditor General, in his consolidated audit report for municipalities in 2021, indicated only 38 of 257 municipalities received a clean audit in the reporting cycle, and up to 44 municipalities' budgets were unfinanced, which means that they could not get in all the income that they were supposed to get um, to finance the budgets. And this is the government level that are closest to the people. And next slide. Oh, housing. So housing is a massive issue in South Africa. Even almost with 30 years, major cities like South Africa still have people living in squalid shacks. You don't know what the shack looks like. It's an informal settlement. The people live in houses constructed with corrugated iron and wood. And the apartheid social development patterns have not been eradicated. By that I mean that we still have white areas, we still have black areas, we still have colored areas, but gradually people are incorporating, they are moving to other areas. People that can um, afford it are obviously um, looking for better life, and they do buy houses in the areas where they can. So, and at the housing communities for the poor, unfortunately, are still very far from the workplaces, which means that people spend large, huge amounts of their money, their income, on transport costs alone. Okay, next slide. So crime, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this issue. It's just, it's terrible. But South Africa is a soaring crime rate, and it has a widespread impact. Obviously, it's difficult to find someone in South Africa that has not been affected by crime. So, as a result, the private industry is very well organized, and people generally have alarms in the homes, and in the vehicles, and the businesses, etc. And figures of the Institute for Security Studies shows that there are just under 20, there were just under 26,000 murders in South Africa in the 1994-95 financial year, and 10 years later, that reduced to 19,824. And however, the official crime statistics released by SAPS show that 25,181 murders were reported in the 21-22 financial year, 19 in the following 19,000 following year, and then 21,000 in, oh, there's a problem. 19, so it will be 19,000, 19,972 in the 21-20 financial. Okay. Next slide. Corruption. So corruption has been a constant issue in South Africa since the first weapon sale scale. I don't know how many of you can remember that. Of the 1990s. Um, since then, the country has been plagued small incidents of corruption, maximum one like state capture. The Zongo Commission of Inquiry was set up to investigate this matter, and yeah, we just come from that issue where it was televised all over TV for days on end. It has come to the end now. So the commission found that numerous incidents of state capture took place in South Africa, and state that institutions under the president, just former president checking so the economy. Economy grew by an estimated 2.5% in 2022. And although the size of the economy was bigger in 2022 compared to pre-pandemic figures, Finance Minister Ina Godongwana predicted in his budget speech that economic growth is only projected to average at 1.4% from 2023 to 2025. So there you said it that eradicating poverty, inequality, and unemployment is as urgent today, if not more so, as it was at the dawn of our democracy nearly 30 years ago. A growing economy is key to achieve this objective, and I agree with him. And implementing growth enhancing reforms is crucial element of our growth strategy. So you can skip that one. This is more about Godongwana going on. And then land issue. I was asked to go to land issue. Okay, so these are the land ownership is an incredible emotive issue in South Africa. And these are actually old stats because there isn't any new ones available that I could find. But this is from 2017. It indicated that whites own 26 million hectares, or should it be billion, of farms and agricultural holdings by individual landowners, followed by colours, and then Indians and Africans, only 5%. So 72% of the land, and then colours, 15% of the land, followed by Indians 5% and Africans at the time only 4%. And yeah, so on this issue, Parliament failed in December 2021 to muster the required two-thirds majority that's necessary for the National Assembly to pass a legislation to amend Section 25 of the Constitution to make provision for the expropriation of land without compensation. But we have the expropriation bill at the moment in the National Assembly, and in September 22, Ramaphosa said in March, oh, Ramaphosa said in March this year, during question time, and we described this expropriation bill as important to address the historic inequalities. Opposition parties are upset about the bill as it makes provision for 0% compensation, which they argue is nothing other than expropriation without compensation in any case. So public hearings about the bill are currently underway. Okay. So if we don't already have enough problems, we now are saddled with the energy crisis. So we have what we call load shedding, which is structured blackouts every day. We have power cuts. Has been very bad this year. So much so that the president appointed the Minister of Electricity to look at the issue. And the government has also taken on a portion of Eskom's debt to alleviate the situation. So we have record levels of load shedding. Load shedding, let's just explain what load shedding is. So they switch off your electricity for 2 hours at a time. And then it depends on what stage you're in. If it's stage 1, it's 2 hours. If it's um, stage 6, it was 4 hours at a time. So at the moment, I think we have stage 1 of they don't. Sorry. Um, um, so in 2023, load shedding has become more frequent and prolonged. Yeah, so stage 6, like I said, it's the power outage at 4 hours at a time. So common occurrence has a huge, massive effect on the economy. Okay, so obviously we're leading into new elections, and every year, every time before an election, people are saying this one. So, watershed elections is a very important election thing that's going to change. But I believe that it's definitely going to be that way. It will be our 7th general elections. And the indication that the ANC, the ruling ANC, will for the first time ever not achieve more than 50% of the votes on national level to form a government by itself. So it will be the first election also in which independent candidates will be able to run. And this is after um, uh, changes to the electoral laws that were signed to make pave way for this independent candidates to contest it. Coalitions. So now everybody is talking about coalitions because of the possibility that the ANC might not achieve 50% of the vote. So we don't have a culture of coalitions. It's not like here in Europe where you are used to it. So we largely inexperienced in this regard. Um, so the elections are coming on with the possible formation, with talks of this possible formation of coalition, forming up coalitions that are abound, and political discussions. It's all the rage at the moment. But unfortunately, it's not as developed as in Europe. Okay. So South Africa was forced now. I don't. If you cast your mind back to when we began in the 2021 municipal elections, when the ANC fell under 47%, under 48%, um, that led to about 70 hung municipalities. It meant that no political party could achieve the majority at municipal level. So we had 70 municipalities. This forced us into those municipalities into coalition government, to form coalition governments. And it's a problem at the moment because it, it's through the workings of those governments, those municipalities into chaos and disarray, and they're dismal at the moment because the instability, it led to instability, and people can't struggle to agree each other and to find each other on all issues. Um, and recently we've seen the dramatic changes of mayors in Metro Council, big councils like Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Johannesburg, Nelson Mandela Bay in PE, Port Elizabeth, which is now Gqeberha. And this happened through motions of no confidence that parties would bring against the mayor, and then they kick the mayor out and a new mayor come in of a different party. And next week the same thing happens again, and then you have different mayors. So they can't because they can't see eye to eye. Okay, so we can carry on to the next one. So what we have at the moment is the DA. The DA is the official opposition under John Steenhuisen. There are six smaller political parties. They started what they call the Moonshot Pact, and this is by the plan by the opposition party to touch the ANC, to get the ANC out. So these parties include the DA, the IFP, the Freedom Front Plus, Action SA, the United Independent Movement, and the Spectrum National Party. And we also have a party called Asenko. This Asenko was formerly affiliated to the ANC, but now they have also started with the ANC, with the DA, the Moonshot Pact. So other parties like the ACDP, they have rejected the pact, so they're still sitting on the sidelines. So the Stanko grouping, the independent civic organization of South Africa, they've become the latest party to join the pact, and they regard it as a massive achievement because they were previously part of the ANC alliance. And he believes that it's the best chance to keep the ANC and the EFF out of power. So they gathered last week um, and they discussed how they were going to work together, and they changed their names because not everybody agreed with this name of the Moonshot Pact. Is now the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, and they vowed not to work with the ANC or the EU. Okay, so the next one. So where's the ANC on the issue of coalitions? So the ANC's General Secretary Fikile Mbalula said in July that the party had no plans, no coalition plans, because they cause instability within municipalities. And the party aims for decisive victory and has not had any coalition discussion with any party. And Mbalula said on the August 10th, we are working to get into, well, not working to get into coalitions with, in the 2024 elections. We are working for a decisive victory. We know that is not a given, so they says we know might not happen, but it's something we are working on and winning our people on our side. Decisive victory, that's the quote. So, and they said the ANC is undeterred with the talks with the moonshot pact people, and it believes that those political parties are only preparing for coalition. Those parties, because they have admitted defeat, they admitted that they're not going to get the majority of the votes. And the ANC currently works in municipalities with parties like the AIC, Al Jamaa, and the EFF in some councils. Okay, so the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, is also from the ANC, obviously. He recently led a national dialogue on coalitions and political parties came together. So these are all the political parties, even those from the Shopback. They came together to deliberate on the issue and to seek national consensus on how the coalition government would be approached. He said how it would be approached is an issue of national importance. And the event was to address the chaotic situation at local government, municipal level. Yes. So, although analysts believe that the ANC want to prepare itself for the 24 election with this regard, with this dialogue, the ANC denies this. And he also came up with a plan to guide political parties to work together at local government. And he said to kept amongst pigeons because he came up with a framework to govern the coalitions. Obviously, it's a big issue because the parties can't see eye to eye. So he proposes framework, but not all political parties are happy with it because they rejected the minimum limits of motion of no confidence and the minimum thresholds to join the coalition, to join coalitions. And the DA has warned that the problems with coalitions at local government level should not be repeated at national level. And although motions of no confidence is important, it feels like it should be limited to one a year. So all those motions on no confidence that I spoke about, where they get the mayors out and change the government, they said that thing must only happen once a year. And the Freedom Fund Plus also feels like some official parties, as like some opposition parties, that the biggest party should not necessarily lead the coalition government. And Patricia Law of the Good Party said that any proposal for an election threshold should be rejected with contempt. Um, so that means for parties to be part of the coalition, they must reject it. So smaller parties are a legitimate result of the democratic society and protected by the constitution, she said. And the EFF obviously boycotted the event because they don't want to be part of the process that's made by the ANC. Okay, so here's my conclusion. I believe that South Africa can realize its true potential through targeted economic growth. Current efforts in this regard that Black economic empowerment does not have the desired outcomes. A total rethink, mind shift of the economic system is necessary to eradicate mass poverty at local level. And I believe this is the root of most of our problems, not only government, but also private sector, large corporations. Involvement is crucial in this regard. So municipalities, a big problem. I believe that they must be uplifted. Only the best skilled professionals should be appointed here to turn communities around and approach the problem from the bottom up, not from top down. The education system also needs a drastic overhaul. We place so much emphasis on passing the trick. That's the last year of education before you schooling before you enter university. But I believe that we need to go to um, put more focus on the foundation phase. Next. So despite all the problems, I'm still optimistic about the future. South Africa has a vibrant democracy, it has well-run institutions and a healthy constitution. And I feel that fears on the national level, that fears that a coalition on a national level would throw the country to chaos is unfounded. We come from a very difficult past. We were able to find common ground, even under the most unlikely and difficult circumstances. The overall and reimagination of the country's national plans and strategies they are desperately needed. There's so much potential and possibilities, and I think that we can achieve it. We can overcome our problems. Politicians must just put the people first, the country. That must be the goal. Whenever they make a decision, they must have that with the people in mind and not to make more money. Oh, yeah. And we will be able to negotiate a workroom settlement, I believe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hilda, thank you so much. Also, the way you dealt with these technical issues. I mean, I know from personal experience that it can make you extra nervous and well, it creates some anxiety, of course. But you dealt really, really well with that. So thank you so much for that. Also, to our audience, our sincere apologies. But I think the conversation can continue now without too much hesitation. um, First, I'll ask some questions myself, but I'll try to minimize them because I know we lost some time. So I'll get to you, audience, and to you people watching YouTube pretty quickly. Um, and please, if you ask a question in the Zuid-Afrikahuis, please state your name, and we'll give you a microphone so that the audience online can also join in. Um, First of all, there were so many stats and developments and stuff, but I want to begin with the beginning, and I want to begin with your personal experience.
Yes.
We're talking about 30 years of democracy, and as I am informed upfront, of course, I know that you were there when the first elections took place, and I also know that you, well, voted back then. Could you please give us like a very, very short explanation of how that felt for you, for your family, for you, for people all around you?
Okay, so obviously it was a very, like I explained, it was a very euphoric moment. It was an ecstatic feeling. I was only 19 years old at the time, but I I can remember apartheid as a child because um, I was in primary school when a teacher brought us out of the classroom, and she told us we must come out and see what's happening in the street. And in the street there were trucks burning, and she said, "Please come out, come look at this because this is history. You must know what's happening here." And the next time I can remember, also I was a bit older then, in high school already. We had the security police coming to the school, looking for people to identify people in the class, the so-called opstokers of the boycotts, and it was a very unpleasant time, obviously. And they came in with their big guns, looking for people and taking people out of the classroom and to be locked up. So obviously, when that happened in 1994, when Nelson Mandela was released, it was this wonderful opportunity. It was just a great moment. We live in Mitchell's Plain, which is a poor community. So I was able to vote, not on the first day, eventually, because the lines were so long, the queues were massive. Um, they had to extend the elections to 3 days, to take place over 3 days, but they eventually voted on the day, on the 27th of April, at a school nearby, because at that point, because it was so difficult for people to find, lines were so long and people were finding it difficult to vote. They were announcing on the radio where you can go, where the lines are short, and that. So, and it was also raining. It's always raining, like here in Amsterdam. It was also raining in Cape Town. Um, so, so yeah, I think it was showers of blessings at the time. So, it was such a wonderful opportunity um, to be able to vote.
So it was
And
the best queue you ever queued on.
yes, it was. It was the best queue, yeah.
Mhm.
And then obviously afterwards I started working because I was a first year journalism student in 1994 at the time. So I started working, and then President Mandela at the time came to our workplace. I'm still at the same work. I'm still at the same company after 30 years. But I have a picture here that you asked for. If we want,
If
can,
possible, yeah,
yes.
I'm interested. Yep. Is it possible? Is it in the PowerPoint?
It's on here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then we'll let it be.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll post it on internet. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a very bad picture.
Okay. Okay. Maybe not then.
See it. So, so yes, yeah, so you came to our workplace and everybody was very excited. So yes, it was a wonderful day. 3 days. Um, yeah.
With that personal note, are there any people that have questions already? Would like to ask something? Jamie, we've got two questions. Please remember to state your name up front and then please ask the question. Yeah.
My name is Mulder, South African, but I'm Dutch.
Hello.
I have two questions. First of all, what kind of election system do you have? Does it resemble completely proportional system as we have, for instance, in the Netherlands? Is it first past the post? How does it work, and how can you become a member of parliament? Second question, you have 11 official languages. How does that work in practice? In parliament, you speak 11 languages. In primary schools, what is the common language, and so on?
Very good questions indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have parties take part in elections. So we have a party system where you then the parties take part in the elections. Um, so and then we have a proportional system, which means that the biggest party, obviously, if you get 50% plus one, you are the ruling party, and then all the other parties that get any kind of there's a threshold to come into parliament. So then you are represented. That's why we have so many parties in the political in parliament, because it makes provision for even the smallest party to be represented in parliament. Okay, on the language issue, it depends on region to region. Like in the Western Cape, we speak English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. So the Xhosa Xhosa would be able you will be able to get that in schools in that province. In That's also for the Eastern Cape, and then in other provinces like KwaZulu Natal, where Zulu is the most widely spoken language, you have access to Zulu at that in those schools. And in Parliament, um, most of the communication obviously is in English, but it is available also in other languages. And they are in the second House of Parliament, there not even in the second, in all both houses of Parliament. When the Parliament is in sitting, there is tolkdienste, what do you call it?
Yes.
Um,
Translations.
translation
Translators. Yeah.
translations available in all official languages. Yes, so it is.
That reminds me of a question I wanted to ask, because you briefly spoke about what Desmond Tutu said
Oh,
after the introduction of the new constitution, and and he was also very fond of the fact that it were now 11 languages, so two more languages than South Africa used to have as official languages. But within those 11 languages, there aren't any Khoi languages. Do you know why that is, or
I think it's not widely spoken. It's only spoken in certain parts of the Northern Cape. And it's actually a dying language. It's very sad.
Mhm.
So there are very few people that still keeps the language alive. So I think there's the projects underway where they want to preserve some of those languages
Mhm.
for or to write it down. Um, but it's not widely spoken. The Khoi people in the Northern Cape, they mostly speak Afrikaans and English, obviously, and then what do they speak in the Northern Cape? I think they speak Tswana. On I'm not sure
We
too.
won't
I'm not
pin you
sure.
down on
Yes.
that, but it's a sufficient answer for sure.
Yes.
And I saw another question in the corner, back in the corner. Thank you, by the way.
Kan ik Afrikaans praten ook?
Dis reg so ja, ek is Afrikaans.
Oké. Mijn van is dokter Valkeniers. Ik was een medical officer in Sterkfontein Hospitaal van 1964 tot 1967, voor apartheid. Ik was observator bij de verkiezingen in 1994. Een probleem toen was dat de mensen eigenlijk veel ongeschoold waren en dat men nog altijd werkte met foto's. Men had toen foto's op de verkiezingsbulletins. Men had niet de naam, naast de namen waren ook de foto's. De foto's waren daar van de kandidaten.
Die foto's van die kandidaat.
Men stemde, they voted, following the picture, not following the name. But anyway, what I must tell you, there are a lot of big mistakes done. To give you an example, in our country, the mayor and the vice mayors, they get paid. The councillors in the municipality, they get paid, but a small amount when they are present. In South Africa, all the council members get paid. If they are present or not present, it doesn't matter, they get paid. If they are absent a lot, what happens then? The party throws them out, they go to another party. You see, another point, I was mayor of Dilbeek in Belgium, and we got a sistership relation with Franschhoek, which is part today of Stellenbosch. I have also done a lot of cooperation development in Plettenberg Bay. At a certain moment, the mayor of Plettenberg Bay, his salary was higher than the salary of the president of South Africa. Yes, because at the end of the year, you see, they can say, look, we have done a good job, we need so much extra.
Mm.
So there are a lot of mistakes. For example, your electricity business. It takes now years and years and years and years already, and nothing happens. You talk about 4 hours. I have a daughter living there, and 3 granddaughters. I must tell you today, some days it is 12 hours. There is no electricity.
Yeah.
How can you have economy working in a country when there is no electricity?
Mm.
Let us be honest.
Yeah.
That is also one of the big problems in South Africa. And the last point, I must say, South Africa got a very good name in education before under apartheid. And what do we see? What do we see today? That the guys who get a diploma, a higher degree diploma, where do they go to? Australia, New Zealand, United States, London, Netherlands. They leave the country. They leave the country. Your black empowerment business is the same. I'm a businessman. For example, I'm a medical doctor. But for example, I'm a businessman. And the government comes to you and they say, look, if you want to work for the government, we want you to give 30% of your shares to a black empowerment business. We have also gone through your personal, and we have seen they're all whites, no colors. If next time a certain percentage are not colored, then you are no longer allowed to work for the government. And so there are a lot of mistakes, really, who make it difficult for South Africa to go up. Because I know the country, I've been 85 times to South Africa. I've done a lot of cooperation development in Franschhoek, in Plettenberg Bay. I must tell you, when I've been there the last time, I was sick when I came home, when I see how the country is going downhill. Sorry that I'm so negative, but I was really happy to hear you because you try to be objective. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, so it is so, yes, that some people join or get involved in politics everywhere for to suit themselves for their own goodwill. Um, and you're right. We in the Western Cape are very lucky that we sometimes we on a better um, stage when it comes to load shedding because the in Cape Town I must say because they stick strictly to the stages that are announced by Eskom, and sometimes because they can generate their own electricity, we on a lower stage, so it's not so bad. So I take your point that it is so that in some areas people are out for 12 hours at a time, and it's devastating to the economy. And I think that the ANC should watch out. This can be a decisive issue for them in the 2024 elections. No, but I,
No, we briefly talked about corruption as well. Ah, okay, okay.
which one?
Um, let's continue, and then I'll rephrase next time. Yeah, yeah. I've got one question here and here. And Jamie, could you check internet for me as well?
Have your take on the role or the future of the EFF, because it seems to be having a persuasive influence on quite a lot of activity in the political spectrum.
The EFF mustn't be brushed aside. They are very important player in this whole elections because now we're sitting with these opposition parties forming a pact to keep the ANC and the EFF out, but um, it is a possibility that they say they don't want to work with the ANC, but it is a possibility that they might turn around and say that they would work with the ANC should they not get enough 50% of the vote. Um, so yeah, the EFF has been jumping around. In some municipalities, they worked with the DA and then they voted with the ANC. So it's difficult to pin them down, but they mustn't be um, underestimated. Um, and they are an important player in the ANC. I mean, they are a 6%, 12% party now. So you can't keep them out of the equation. They are a very important player. And I think also for the democracy, for all the all the antics in parliament and all that, they are keeping, they have a role, they are keeping the ANC on their toes. um, because before the ANC would just let things like do whatever they want to do, but the young people of the ANC, of the EFF, the radicalness of them is important for to keep the democracy vibrant. I believe they have a place.
Yeah, I guess even though they're not part of the government now,
Mm.
the government tends to move a little bit to their direction, right? So they do have a lot of effect, I guess, in politics right now.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, yeah.
They do.
Next question, please.
Saskia, the role of semigration, people moving from the north to the Western Cape, and is there any? What's the situation now like about? Is the Western Cape still wanting to leave the rest of the country?
People have all these aspirations. There's even a party called the Cape Independent Party that was especially set up for that, with that role in mind to om af te stig. to become separate from South Africa. But that's like never ever going to happen. The Western Cape is part of South Africa. But we did see with the pandemic, we did see more and more people moving to the Western Cape. It's more stable. Um, Cities like George, Plettenberg Bay, that the gentleman at the back spoke about, they're very popular, and even places like Barrydale, people do move there. Um, yeah, and just on the issue of you mentioned the people leaving the country. It is so we have a huge issue with the brain drain. People going overseas, working in other countries, and that yes, and that leads to problems like we have, like in ESCOM at the moment, with all these engineers and professionals leaving. We sit with huge problems because the maintenance is not taking place at the power stations because the people with the skilled people have left. And that's a huge, massive issue. And now, but they did ask. ESCOM did ask for people. The minister did ask for those skilled people to come back, and retired professionals and skilled people to come back, to bring their knowledge back to ESCOM to help us with the situation.
Hebben we vragen nog op het internet of hebben we hier in de zaal vragen? Kijk, dan daar achterin, de meneer, zou je... Jose, would you like to give the microphone or? Yeah.
I was very interested to hear you speak about all the problems that are present in South Africa, like poverty, like corruption. I'm just curious as to, I find it hard to phrase this correctly, but in what way specifically do you think apartheid influenced these problems? Like what aspect of apartheid still causes these problems? And do you think it can be resolved?
I think apartheid is responsible for all our problems that we have at the moment because of poverty. Look, if people weren't poor and they had jobs, we wouldn't have this huge crime issue, right? If people had jobs, we wouldn't have 18 million people receiving grants every month because people would work for their money. So the problem lies with the economy. If we get the economy right, if we get people into jobs, then I think we can solve most of our problems. Because I don't believe that people don't want to work. They do want to work. And it makes me so sad when I walk here around the area and I see so many adverts for people for jobs. As jy ons volgende medewerker, kom werk vir ons, as jy ons volgende verkoopsassistent of wat ook al. Like people back at home would jump at opportunities like that, but it isn't there. Yes, so the ANC and our politicians must really sit up and take note and we need like a Marshall Plan, man, for the economy to get the economy working, to get people into jobs and busy and be productive members of society. I think that apartheid really is responsible for most of our problems. Talking too much.
Ja, naast achterin. In the back, please.
I'm Rene Tiefma. Just to back up the story, I left South Africa in 77. In the apartheid years, I was 20. We should not forget, at that moment in time, the electricity was only for the whites.
Yes.
There was no compulsory schooling for the Africans.
Mm.
I mean, so all the differences in schooling problems we had problems in schooling. In the 80s, the schooling was introduced for the Africans, but then we had all these, the youth burning the schools.
Mm.
So and we had the 1976 riots
Yes.
within Soweto. The schooling was seen as an apartheid tool because Afrikaans was introduced. So we should not forget that most of these issues, I won't say everything, that corruption was probably much less, but we also had a Bantustans where there was widespread corruption in the Bantustans.
Mm.
Not as much, not at the scale it's now, but many of these problems that we see now still in South Africa were introduced or were created or were born, were introduced under the apartheid years.
Mm.
So, and of course, 30 years seems to be a long time. But South Africa is an extremely complex country. And when I left South Africa, I thought it was going to end in a blood bath.
Mm.
That's why I left. And I was there back in April last year, and I was so amazed. I was sorry. I was in the Eastern Cape.
Mm.
I felt the poverty was extreme. I mean, there was
Yeah.
hunger there, and I was shocked. I was really shocked. But people are still friendly to me. I was driving around in the big Land Rover, driving through these, I would say, Xhosa areas. Ciskei,
Yes, yes, yes.
the
Transkei and Ciskei,
yeah,
yes.
the Ciskei, the border wars. I was visiting the
Yes.
battlefields,
Yeah.
and people were still so kind to me, so friendly,
Mm.
and I had no problem with crime. And crime was in '77. There was lots of crimes in the townships, as we call them. I mean, the talkies
Yes.
and the things. Crime is not new in South Africa. It's not as if it has introduced since we had democracy. Crime has been always in South Africa.
Mm.
We as whites were better, and still we are better protected against the crime. But amongst the Africans, there's always been a large amount of crime, and still is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to say. So we should not blame everything that's happening now in South Africa on the current government or on the current system. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
Yes, I agree with you. If we, I mean, like I said, like white people, they have, or not even just white people. If you have the economic power to protect yourself, then you can you can insulate yourself from crime. But not everybody has that ability to do that. So, and um, it's not all the problems are due to the government at the moment. Yes. Um, yeah, and I'm glad that you were safe in 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 the Eastern Cape.
Thank you for sharing, indeed. One last question in the back.
Uh, sorry, I have a question on the developments in the Western Cape, corruption all across, even transcending into apartheid times, and then like current situation in South Africa. So let's first start with the Western Cape as one, as have been pointed out, they have pioneered to be independent from South Africa. But have you looked at why they have been pioneered to be independent from South Africa? What is happening in the Western Cape and the amount of resources flowing into the Western Cape from the international community and to who it is helping? One, two, there's still, like you said, there's still these segregated communities where some places get better service delivery than others. We see now with the current strikes that's happening now, people can't get to jobs, people can't get to work. The Western Cape economy has came to a standstill because people do not have the means. So it's still that whole in unbalanced development is still happening, and you can take what's happening in the Western Cape and blow it up to the whole of South Africa because you don't see equal development in all neighborhoods. You only see development and consistent service deliveries within white neighborhoods.
Mm.
I can say I'm not the best person to say it because I didn't fully grow up in a small neighborhood or in a township and call it. I'm from the Eastern Cape. It's Lalenis. I had family there. I visited there.
Mm.
I grew up in a military base. We grew up in the suburbs. So I was one of the fortunate people that got to see differences and the different ways people were treated.
Mm.
And yes, apartheid does have a role where you are still disproportionately affected by your salary. As the same as in Europe, here, it's the fight for equal pay for females. In South Africa, you have equal pay for females fight and as well equal pay for race fight. And as a colored person with the whole BEE stance, you don't have a footing to stand in BEE because you are not technically part of the Black empowerment. So when we talk about inclusion, who are we including and who are we excluding?
Mm. Yeah. I'm not too sure there were so many questions there.
Maybe
Say
yeah.
about the Western Cape.
Yeah.
I don't know
Feel free.
who the Western Cape, the money that you're talking about flowing into the Western Cape. I think it must go to the people that are rich already because we have very poor communities in the Western Cape still. Although we are very well run province and a very well run city of Cape Town, there are poor areas. There are like um, extreme poverty, like the gentleman pointed out. It's still with us. People still don't have proper housing. People still live in shacks. They don't have jobs. They're poor. So I don't know where that money is going to then. Yes?
I'm also from South Africa.
Yeah.
And I know the different disparities. And when I speak to people in Europe about South Africa, it's usually Cape Town is the best place to be on earth. But it's certain areas of Cape Town, and those areas
Yes.
are mostly predominantly white.
Yes.
So you still see segregation, and the influx of money that comes in, it goes straight to those private economies. So
Oh, I see what you mean.
you're feeding the own cycle, and it's not diversifying.
Yes, yes, that's why we need this economic overhaul, because people don't have access to the economy because it's still so white. And when you come to South Africa, obviously you gonna go to a Natal that's owned by a white person, because I don't know any black person that owns a hotel, but that's what she's talking about. All the downstream activities, we need to get people in there. The person that sells the curios to you, they are those people. The workers we need. It's so important to diversify the economy to get more people to be active participants in the economy.
And I think from that flows the need for good education, so not a tier one and tier two form of education, because people need to know where the funds are, right? If there are funds but you don't know where to find them, where to apply for them, then you won't get any funds, I think. That brings me to my last question, and it's of course it's a personal view, personal perspective, but what do you think these coming up elections will bring South Africa? Could you, I don't know, give us a little hint of what you forecast is gonna happen, coalition-wise or future-wise in general?
I think that's an unfair question because I don't know. It's anybody's guess. But if I must guess, I would say that the ANC will get the majority of the votes.
So no
Maybe
coalition.
no, no.
Okay.
I'm not saying they will get um
The
more
majority
than
of the
50.
vote.
They will get they will be the biggest party.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't think they will necessarily have that 50% vote, but there will still be, maybe they'll get again 47% of the vote.
Hmm.
And then I think they will form a pact with the smaller parties like the AIC, the
EFF
Aljama,
possibly.
those small ones.
So not the EFF. They're gonna try to work around EFF.
I think they will first try to work around the EFF.
Mhm.
Only if push comes to shove, I think they will work with the EFF. But for the life of me, I cannot see the opposition parties um, ruling South Africa. I don't know whether we are ready for a president, for a Julius Malema. Should he make a pact, be a kingmaker for an opposition pact? Or John Steenhuisen? I don't know whether we are ready for him. I mean, he called his ex-wife roadkill.
Mm.
So, I mean, yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know whether we are ready for that. But you know what? We must do what's best for South Africa. People must think carefully. But the ANC is not doing itself a favor or the people a favor. So I don't know whether the opposition would be is what South Africa need now, a opposition government. Maybe it is. Maybe it could get us out of that rut, and we can then start building the South Africa that we want and that the people deserve.
That's a beautiful end. Thank you so much, Boda, for coming. Thank you all in the audience in the room here in the Zuid-Afrikahuis. Also, thank you so much for watching via YouTube. Should there be any questions we didn't talk about, please let us know. Send us an email, and we'll try to forward it. In 2 months' time, approximately, we'll have another journalist in residence interview. So we hope to see you there. Thank you so much.